Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Lisle, and today is Thursday, January 28th, 2021, and you are tuning in to the Coffee for Coaches with Coach Lisle. It's a show that I want to bring as much value as possible to coaches out there. I have shows throughout the week live for hitting, for parenting, and all kinds of stuff, but today I want it specifically to help and give value to coaches, and it's going to be a Q&A show. So I want you to get your Q&As, your questions in. So if you are tuning in this morning, here's what I want you to do. I want you to hit that like button. I want you to hit the retweet button, whatever, the share button. I want you to hit that button this morning, and I want you to tell me where you're tuning in from. 2 nights ago, I hosted a live, and we had people from New Zealand, Australia, Costa Rica, Canada, Mexico, France, New York, every state. It was a really, really fun time. And it's always fun for me to see where you guys are tuning in from. So if you are tuning in live this morning, bright and early, like it is in California right now, 6:01 a.m., I'm drinking from my Happy Holidays mug. Let me know you guys are here. Let me know you're paying attention and where you're tuning in from, and get your questions ready. Today is all about questions and answers for coaches. What are some of the challenges you face as a coach, and how can we help you with that? Which leads me to my next thing. My special guest this morning, probably one of your favorite Instagram follows, Coach Ferber. Coach Ferber, thanks for coming on this morning. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Coach. I appreciate you, Lau.
Hey, if you don't follow Coach Ferber on Instagram, you are missing out. His handle is at Coach Ferber on Instagram. Fire content always. I love following him. His stories are fire. Everything, and so everybody I talk to is like, "Oh, you're gonna have Coach Ferber on? Oh, dude, I love that guy." So Ferb's going to join us today and help us answer some questions for coaches. And if you're a coach, hopefully we can give you guys some value today. So I've got a bunch of people telling me already they're tuning in. So I got Mike, who says he's tuning in from San Diego, California. Kenny's in Illinois. We've got David from Tampa, Florida. Barry's tuning in from Waycross, Georgia. We got people from Pittsfield, Illinois, Maryland. Mike's up early this morning in Newark, California. And Kenny Hawkins says, Ferbs, good morning. So we got Tyson tuning in from Marion, Ohio, and Matthew Hess is from Arizona. So we got some early risers over here on the west side. So Michelle joining us from New Hampshire. So I appreciate everybody who's tuning in. And look at this here. Ben's in Priceville, Alabama. Gary's in North Carolina. And Matthew Hess says, Coach Ferber is the guy to follow.
Thanks, man. So, appreciate you, Coach.
Give him some love. And Jason says he's in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is actually an awesome place. So everybody tuning in. Keith in Oklahoma. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody. What I'd love to hear from you guys is some questions you guys have for Coach Ferber and I that can help you as the season's going on, especially for a baseball, softball coach. And hopefully the world's opening up a little bit, and we're getting out on the field a little bit more, hopefully, when it gets a little warmer. I know Coach Ferber was telling me it's in the 20s still in New York where he's at. So it's pouring rain here in Cali. So I'll tell you what, as we get things rolling with the Q&A, Coach Ferber and I were talking last night about one of the challenges of coaching, whether you coach high school or travel ball, a lot of times is when we have tryouts, there's a lot of kids that try out, and a lot of times, talent is not the problem. Like, we've got tons of talent, but we can't carry 50 people on the roster. Sometimes you can't carry 25 people on the roster. Coach Ferber, when it comes to tryouts and it comes to large numbers, how do you deal with some of the process of cutting players and some of that? Because it can be difficult as a coach to figure out what is the best way to handle it. Because I remember when I was a kid, you checked the locker room at the end of the day and hope your name was on the list, and that was kind of the way that cuts worked back in the day. I feel like nowadays coaches do a little bit better job of it. How do you deal with that?
It's funny you mention that. This is the time of year right about now where we're going through final rosters, and some of those phone calls are great. When you tell a kid, hey, you made it, and let's go out there and do some work. And the other ones it's like there's nothing in between. It's either the person in the family feels great, or the down in the dumps really depressed that they didn't make it. But really a lot of stuff, I think when I first started coaching, I made the mistake of just looking to just get studs. Just let me find the most toolsed out, highest metrics guys that I know will be able to get college coaches and scouts to show up to our games. I thought that was the move. I came to find out over time that personality for me has such a huge impact because, you know, it's gotten to a point really where you have to be cool. I have to want to be around you, you know. So a lot of the stuff, a lot of decisions I make these days on whether I want to spend time with a guy that, especially at this age, it's not. I'm not at the age yet, like in the big leagues, where it's like, hey, coaches don't really matter. Like players get paid more than coaches, and coaches are kind of there just to kind of like, you know, make sure the guy doesn't go revert to something.
Yeah.
But that's what I do with my young guys. I really focus on the personality of them and the parents. The parents are key there.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a really good. That's it's just tough. I tell you, I know parents think that it's tough for them. It's tough for the kid. Just know that it's tough for coaches. There's been some times that we've had to make that cut where it's just that one kid, and it's like, oh man, I really like this kid, and trying to find some way. So as a coach, for me, if I'm a high school coach, what I would encourage you, if you're a high school coach, if you have a couple kids that are on the fence, and you feel like, hey, I'm going to cut these kids, and you're not going to make it, maybe sit down and talk with them and say, hey, would you be willing? Do you still want to be a practice player? Do you want to be a team manager? Do you want to be involved with the team somehow and still give them some swag and try to help them out and just to be a part of the team? And sometimes some of the kids will take that. A lot of kids, their feelings are hurt and they want to go. They're out. But if you can find a way to get that kid to be involved somehow, it might be a way to kind of save them a little bit. So if you're just tuning in, it is 6:07 a.m. on the West Coast, 9:07 where Coach Ferber is in New York. If you're just joining us, it's a Coffee with Coach Lisle show, and Coach Ferber and I is my guest today. We are trying to answer your questions about coaching, and if you're just tuning in, do us a favor, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit that retweet button, and also get your questions in. We want to be able to provide as much value as possible to coaches. So the first question I've got out of here is from Spencer Taylor. Spencer says, what is the best arm care, arm strength routine for 10U players other than limited pitch count and innings limit? So I'll tell you, Spencer asked specifically for 10-year-olds, but I would say that for 10-year-olds up to 16-year-olds, I think it's a similar question. I think everybody has different ideas on arm care and arm strength programs. I would just say that I've had a lot of experience with. We use J bands and do a lot of good stuff with band work and just being in good shape. I think I would say everybody's a little bit different. I know there's a lot of guys out there doing drive line at 10U and all that stuff, and I don't think there's anything bad to that. I just think that when it comes to kids and it comes to playing, like the overuse of it itself, and I think when it comes to exertion, I hear stories all the time. I know Fur probably does too, and probably sees it even at the 16U, 18U level. You got a kid throws 100 pitches on Saturday morning in a tournament, and then Sunday comes, it's a tight game, and next thing you know, coach is like, "Hey Johnny, go get warmed up." So in my opinion, a lot of the youth stuff and strength and routine programs really has to do with just not making bad decisions. What do you think, Coach? What do you guys do? What do you talk to your players about when it comes to arm care, arm strength routines?
Well, first of all, I think it's a great question. I'm glad that you guys are educating people on arm stuff because we do have a serious problem with guys being misinformed. First, I think it starts with, I don't focus so much on the age of the player. It's more his window of development. So we've all seen the 13-year-old that's more developed than the 15-year-old and the 15-year-old that look, the kid that goes, hey, I am 12 in the Little League World Series stuff. Well, his joints and stuff and how pliable his throwing tissue and all that stuff is different than, a kid that doesn't. The one thing I would be really just mindful of when I'm looking at guys like that is that today, when we as coaches say, hey man, you got to throw hard to make it to the big league. You have to go hard. You have to be able to velocity. You have to have velocity. Yes, we do. But I would kind of take a step back from chasing velocity. Chasing just velocity by itself is similar. It's training one-dimensional, right? And when you train one-dimensional, if you think about like a UFC fighter, right? I could training just velo is like a UFC fighter training just his right hand to have a knockout blow. Yep. So Coach Lisle, if I have the most vicious right hand and if I catch you with it, I can knock you out. But you train chokeholds, submissions, endurance. You have knees, you have kicks. You're a well-balanced, well-rounded athlete. 9 times out of 10, you're going to beat me, right? So I would say that having a good mixture of not just throwing hard, but also having some finesse and feel to add into your programs where you're doing that. Now at the younger ages though, we also have to be mindful of the fact that when guys just try to say just throw strikes, and the result that the kid is getting visually, right, is saying,
Yep.
well, my coach is going to reward me by clapping and saying just don't walk anybody. We also have to be able to create the sequence that's going to unlock the velo, right? So one thing you could do on the side, and you see the guys, the drive line guys that throw balls into the wall, the plyo balls, something for a young kid like that at 10 or 11 years old, if you want to try to get him to throw a little harder, Lance Wheeler, he talks about, I love Lance. And he told me one time, if you just take a piece of plywood, just a regular piece of plywood, put a piece of sheet metal over it, or something that'll make a sound, tell the kid, listen, forget about throwing strikes. I want you to make the loudest noise on this piece of wood or this. So it's like that audio feed was like boom, boom, boom. And the louder it gets, now he's getting audio feedback, which that plays later, when that glove pops, right, coach? Right. So that's what I would say is mix it in with well-balanced routines.
That's great. No, that's really good. Our next question says, it's a good one. I like this. It says, at tryouts with lots of kids, are there any drills or situations you set up to help identify leaders? That's a great question. I would say for me, a lot of times I try to, when it comes to tryouts, I try to put them in very competitive situations. See who competes, and when it comes to explaining a drill or situation, to see who kind of steps up and tries to help lead it, and just kind of go through the motions. I like to sit back and try to watch as much as I can, watch the behavior and attitude of kids. You'll see some kids who just naturally, take the lead on a drill or in a competition. They're a little bit different. You see guys who kind of stay back, but that's just one of the ways that I help identify leaders. Ferb, what do you think when you're trying to evaluate your players and you're looking for some leaders in a tryout type of situation? What are some ways or drills that you've used?
Well, I don't know if they really would be called drills, but I definitely look for just straight up posture, how they walk into the actual complex. If they look like a ball player right away, like if they have some type of a clue. And again, this is going to go based on what age we're dealing with too. But you can see other kids will be attracted to that energy without him actually trying to have to separate himself. If you identify groups of guys like these guys, a lot of kids are talking to him or watching what he does first. That's one way. I think once kids get to about even 12 years old, man, a strong, firm handshake to the coach that's running the tryout and good eye contact, that goes a long way. Yep. A kid that is doing things a little differently than the next kid, like after he throw him the round of BP, the kid's like, hey, thanks, coach. Appreciate you throwing me BP. Thank you. Yeah. And walks away. Little things like that. I identify, hey, that's a dude right there,
Yep, they respect the game. They respect the coaches. You can tell that. It's a good. Don asks, Coach, what's your best advice to give your team captains? So think about that one for about. I would tell you, for me, when I get my captains together in meetings, we have captains meetings, we talk about stuff. I just try to instill with them to understand, like, hey, it's a privilege to be a captain if you have actual designated captains, and with that comes responsibility and accountability, and I'm gonna hold you to high standards. And so that's gonna be, I'm gonna give them that kind of speech of like, hey, I'm gonna be keeping you very accountable. There's a lot of responsibility involved, and understand that the younger guys are gonna be watching you. They're gonna be watching how you do it, and if you get away with stuff that you shouldn't get away with that other players don't, there's going to be some problems there. So I'm going to hold you to high standards. And then secondly, I'm going to tell the captains, like, hey, you are the ones that are really holding this team together, and I need your guys' help on the field. When you see guys not doing stuff up to the level that is required of you, I need you to put your captain hat on and not your, hey, we're buddies cap, and you're going to let that thing slide. You got to be able to be a man enough or woman coach enough or player enough to be able to look at your teammate and say, hey, man, we don't half-ass that drill. Like, I need you to step it up. And, there's a lot of captains, kids, college players, and pro, they don't like calling their teammates out when they're not doing their best. So for my advice for a lot of captains is you got to be able to hold your other teammates accountable. Coach, what do you got? What are some advice that you would give coaches to tell some advice to their captains?
Well, at first, I do the evaluation of the different guys and how their interactions are with their teammates. If their teammates are not rooting for them when they do something good, they might not be a captain because they might, you can tell a lot by other kids rooting for certain players or not. They can tell if they're selfish guys, selfish players or not. I tell my guys sometimes, like leaders, if you're a leader, then you also know how to follow. You could be a good follower at times, right? When it's time for you to put somebody else on a pedestal and let somebody else shine, you understand how to do that. It can't, if it's based on the outcome of, if I'm waiting for a certain outcome from my own performance to be able to pick somebody up, but if I'm 0 for 4 with 2 rollovers, a punch out, and all of a sudden I'm not that guy anymore, that's not captain material.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always ask players, are you all in? Are you all in because you have to, or are you all in only when you get your way? When you're batting third and playing shortstop, then are you that guy? But as soon as you're not, are you a different guy? That's a big issue right there. So, all right, Coach, I'm gonna throw this one to you here. Tyson asks, what's your best coaching advice for coaches to help raise players' baseball IQ in practice? How to instill instinct in defensive plays and base running, stuff like that. So if you're trying to teach baseball IQ at practice, you got anything that you do that other than just talking at them?
Well, I think if you're talking about, listen, practice is extremely important. I think that right now we're in a little bit of a situation where, as we used to, when we used to be, guys used to play a lot of pickup games in the street, and they would kind of learn how to get reads and different things like that in neighborhood pickup games. Now you kind of have to give them the information and be able to come with some stuff. I've given my guys some homework assignments and given them some things with cutoffs, and I try to keep it simple. I don't try to overload them with information. I try to say, let's get this little small piece first, right here, this first and third play, or this different bunt coverage or something. Let's get it. Let's execute it perfectly, and then we'll move on to the next thing. If I give them too much at once, and again, this is all depending on age, right? So I think execute it, making sure guys feel good about knowing something completely and retaining it is better than just throwing a bunch of stuff at them in a practice, try to overload it.
Yep. And I would say for me, the best way that I teach baseball IQ is whether it's in scrimmages, summer ball can be a good one if it's not a tournament and you can slow the game down. I like to do it in games. And I'll walk out in the middle of the field and be like, hey, stop. All right. Here's the situation. Here's what we should have done. And when you can do it in a game situation like summer ball where you're playing a local team and you guys know you can, there's moments in there you can really teach the game, that you can still do it in a scrimmage or something like that. So. Bobby asks, and I'll leave this one to you because I know you're out in the circuit a lot. What do you think about what do you tell your players as a coach about attending showcases in large tournaments like Perfect Game or PBR? I know there's a bunch of them out there too, all kinds of showcase stuff out there. But as a coach, travel ball coach, and your team, and I know you guys deal with that a lot. When a player or a parent comes to you and says, "Hey, coach, what about the showcase? What about this? What's your advice with the whole showcase thing?"
I tell my guys that Perfect Game and PBR are a tool, right? They're a tool for us to use and utilize to get. They're there. It's a system that's in place to get guys, to be able to be seen by different people. The key for my guys is I'm going to make sure before I show up to that. Now, if you want to go and experiment and see what's out there when you're a kid, when you're young, and see what kind of competition and who your peers are and stuff, that's fine. But if you notice at that first one that you go to and this takes some feel too from the parent. If you're a delusional parent and you say, yeah, my kid fits right in with those guys, but the other guy's running a 7.060 and your kid's running an 8.060 and clearly his arm strength is not where it needs to be to say for anybody to look or when he's taking he doesn't understand what a quality round of BP looks like to an evaluator. We have to make sure, because the preparation is where confidence it comes into place, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes if we jump the gun on a kid and he doesn't know what's coming, I do the exact showcase that Perfect Game or PBR does in a controlled setting in a facility and show them every single thing they're going to do. If they're doing broad jumps, if they're cutting lasers, if they're doing 5-10-5 shuttle runs, we're going to go, if they're doing we're going to make sure that they understand what each different part of the event is and how to kind of approach each different metric.
I love that. That's awesome. What a great way to approach it. is prepare them exactly for what they're going to see. So travel ball coaches, high school coaches, if you know that your athletes, if you've got a lot of them are going to start doing that stuff, start practicing it, start modeling that. I love that idea. That's awesome.
Matt, real quick, by the
Yeah.
way, if people are still, and if you have questions about, well, what does stand out, the numbers, that stuff's readily available. So some people know, well, what is a typical 60 time for this? Like, so there's places to see, like if you're a corner infielder, let's say at the D1 level, and that's just like those guys typically run like 7.1, 7.0 60s, right? If you're a 7.2 or 7.3 60, and you can hit bombs, that works, right? If you have another tool that stands out. But I would say at least start with one tool, whether it's your arm strength, speed. It could be speed. If you just fly, but your best, you could still go out there and get a look, right? But check the numbers first to see what does actually stand out to those coaches, so you can test it, not waste your money, then go in there and really turn some heads.
I like that. All right, Damien asks, let's see here. Damien asks, when I was a kid, I fell in love with sports, just meeting up with friends and playing pickup games, with youth sports becoming predominantly competitive at all ages, and pickup games without parents, coaches, and expectations now being almost non-existent. What do you do as a coach to help build love of the game outside of just drills and winning? I'll tell you, for me, and one of the things I really love about Coach Ferber, at least when I follow him on Instagram, is his personality and he's having fun. I'll tell you what, like at the college level, I coach D1. If there was ever a criticism of me from people on the outside, they would say I have too much fun. I'm dancing around and I'm singing at practice, and I'm too loose. I mean, that could be a criticism. I'll tell you, for me, if you're trying to build love into the game for kids and you have practice, I mean, my practices are hard, and the expectations are high. Our kids know it's hard, but I'm going to goof around a lot. I'm going to have fun. I'm going to have music. I'm going to, and we're going to do competitive. And it's going to be, I tell you what, if I'm coaching Little League right now, I'm coaching, if you're listening, 8U, 10U, I'm buying packs of baseball cards. And at the end of practice, I'm giving them out to people who do competitions. When I was a kid, I hated bunting, but my dad was my Little League coach all the way till I was 15, and he would take $1 bill and put it out on the infield skirt, and the closest person to that dollar would get it. And we were all pumped up to bunt because we get that $1, like 7 years old. You get a snack shack and get some Big League Chew. So to me, Damien, the answer for me is finding ways to just be really fun. Practice has got to be fun. It still can be hard. You can still work hard at it, but it's got to be some fun. Coach, what are some ways? Like I said, I know a lot of people follow you because your personality is fun and everything. But when it comes to practice, how do you make it building the love of the game for your players?
Well, I think it starts with being able to detach myself from how old I am and the responsibilities that I have right now, and all the things. I got a kid coming, a wife, this and that. That has to disappear when I get to the baseball field.
Amen.
Great players have great imaginations, right? And my job, and I talk to my friend Kyle Wagner about this all the time, my job is to keep their imagination intact. So at the level that I'm at with high school, high level high school age players, 13 to 17, I work with some pro guys, but not on the field coaching them. And so I have to, if a kid has played for me for a year, let's say, if he spent a year of his life with me, and by the time he leaves my tutelage and my coaching, he does not thoroughly love this game more than anything else in the world, I feel that I have failed as a coach. That's my failure as a coach. That's not his, because if he was never meant to play the game, and he was just being forced before he got to me, that's a different thing. But my job is to give this player the biggest imagination and have him dream that he can be Mike Trout, and then just pass him on to the next guy with his imagination intact, right? It only takes one coach to drain that out of a player, and we have to be careful of that too. Like you said, this is the same reason I follow you, Coach. It's the personality. It's not, I made the mistake when I was first started of overvaluing knowledge, coaching knowledge, and undervaluing motivation, right? You don't have to know every single thing about baseball to be able to grow a player and develop a player. You have to be open-minded. And that's what I was. I think I tuned it more into, I try to check more into, let me find out what this player's strengths and weaknesses are, what makes him tick, and then we can go from there.
That's great. That's really good. All right, so if you're just tuning in right now, it is 6:25 a.m. on the West Coast, 9:25 on the East Coast. I've got Coach Ferber as my guest this morning for Coffee with Coaches. This show is specifically designed for coaches to get some advice. It's a Q&A. So get your questions in. We're going to answer questions for about 10 more minutes, and then we're going to cut you off. So get your questions in. And if you have any questions for Coach Ferber specifically, get those in as well. Coach Ferber is one of the best known travel ball coaches in the country for baseball, and is a great follow on Instagram at Coach Ferber. So check him out. So I've got a bunch of questions here lined up, but we're gonna try to crank them out here in the next 9-10 minutes. And so make sure you get your questions in. Hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that retweet button if you're watching on Twitter, and let's get this thing rolling some more. All right, next question I've got. Let's see. Here we go. Michael asks, hey, Coach Ferber, who was one of Coach Ferber's mentors throughout his coaching career?
One of my biggest mentors was a gentleman named Coach Matt Lisle. He's actually from the Pittsburgh area. His son, when I first started coaching and I was just getting into, this is, 6 years ago. I mean, I started out like most at the very young levels. I started volunteering, coaching 10-year-olds. I was coaching kids that didn't speak English in the park, Dominican kids in New York City, just for free, just coming out to learn, how do I deal with these guys? These guys don't even speak English. I don't speak Spanish that well, very broken. But this guy, Matt Lisle, his son's Troy Lisle, he's at Vanderbilt right now. He took me under his wing and basically showed me a lot of things about how to interact with people, how to connect with college coaches and get my guys, like build a network of people around me, collect as much phone numbers and information. Don't be afraid to share stuff with different guys and create this network of people that now any player that ever comes under my juice can be connected with immediately. Right. So Matt Lisle was his name, and he's actually he's a dentist, to be honest. He's not like a full-time coach, but the guy, man, he connects with kids on another level. Guys run through walls. I used to be like, I'm like, man, why do these kids play so hard for you? And it was just that, he had that it factor where the kids just loved to be around him and loved to listen to him. And he wasn't this crazy, big, crazy personality like you, Coach Lisle. He knew how to smile and he knew how to pick a guy up, but he also knew how to be stern when he needed to be stern. And there's that fine line, right, where you don't lose control by being so, high energy, and you still maintain the respect of the players. But he had a crazy amount of feel.
Wow, that's awesome. All right, Coach, the next one I think is a good one for you too. It's from Frank Contreras. He says, Coach, what approach do you take with your players in aiding them while parents pay for private lessons? So I know you do a lot of lessons. You work with different guys from big league guys on down. But with your travel ball program, if you got a kid that goes and sees somebody else for hitting lessons, and you're trying to work with them or talk to them, how do you navigate that a little bit? Because I know that can be tough. I can tell you, for me, sometimes I'll sit and talk with them a little bit and ask them about what are they learning from their coach a little bit. But what is something? How do you approach that when the kid comes to you and says, "Oh, well, my hitting coach says to do this," or "I'm doing this"? How do you deal with that?
It's one of the biggest challenges now today is combining the private sector of what guys are doing out in a thing to what's happening in game on the field, right? The only way that I've found out that I can be successful at doing that is to try my hardest to connect with their private coach. I have to try to reach out and say, who is this guy? And when the conversation is, hey, whatever you're working on in practice, if you have suggestions for me, start out the conversation with of what he's doing in game, or you have some verbal cues that you've been working on over there, and give him the amount of shot. He's working hard. Whether I agree with his tactics or not, that's beside the point. We're going to play it out on the field. We're going to see if it plays. If it plays, then keep doing what you're doing. If it doesn't play, I'm going to tell you that whatever mechanically you're working on in the cage, it doesn't matter, because he's swinging at sliders in the dirt and he's taking fastballs down the middle. So whatever you do. So I have to connect with those guys.
You do.
Try your hardest to, and try to, because some people are not meant to connect with, but I found that if you approach one of the private sector guys in a really upfront way and say, hey, what are you guys doing? I want to understand it. Some guys, I think, and I used to maybe in the beginning get a little bit insecure if I don't know exactly what they're teaching.
Yep.
And I have to forget about that. I have to leave that behind and just go, hey, look, we're here for the kid.
Yep. And I think a lot of times it's just a matter of, hey, we'll try it your way. You do your thing, but if halfway through the season you're hitting 190, we gotta have a conversation about what it is. So. I'll tell you what. We're going to answer maybe 3 or 4 more questions. You guys are getting great questions in. Uh, I'll take this one if you want. It's about scheduling. It says, "What's your approach to balancing challenges versus opportunities for success when designing a season schedule? What does a just right schedule look like to you?" I'll tell you what. One of my mentors, I used to read all of his books. Andy Lopez was the head coach at Arizona for a long time. He wrote in one of his first books. He said the way that he does his schedule is that in his preseason non-conference scheduling at college level, he schedules a few teams he doesn't think he can beat. He schedules a few teams he knows he can beat, and a few teams that he knows can be a battle. That way, you're gonna play a few teams that are like, hey, you should beat these teams. You're gonna beat these teams. And you've got a couple teams that hey, we're probably head to head with a little bit, and then a couple teams that are probably way above you that kind of give you just that mix to get you ready for conference. So I would tell you I've done both. I tell you what, I coached a high school team 2009. 2009, I coached this high school program, Ignatia Valley High School, where my dad went to high school, and it's a low-income school that didn't have a winning season in 19 years. 19 years. And so I'll tell you what, we had like 12 kids on the team. So that schedule, I went out there and tried to find the worst teams I could possibly find just to get us some wins, to get us some confidence. So you got to know your team a little bit too. Everybody wants to play the best competition. And if you schedule all the toughest competition and you're 0-10 going into conference, there might be some trouble with confidence issues. Same on the other end. If you only schedule, we call the cupcakes, and you go undefeated into conference, and then all of a sudden the conference teams start beating up on you because you weren't prepared. So you got to have that combination a little bit to get you prepared for conference, get you prepared for the postseason, and it depends too. Again, if you have a weak conference, I'm gonna put some really tough teams in the preseason. But all right, we got a couple more questions here I want to get to before we let you go. Let's see. This is a good one here. Barry asks, hey, Coach Ferber, any advice to give on players that practice well and take BP great, but may appear to have confidence issues during gameplay? So, good practice player, confidence issues in the game. How do you deal with that, or how do you talk to those players?
I think the confidence factor, it comes into, and in-game stuff, it comes into, like, we as athletes, we all have a core belief system. Right. It's it's a belief system that we have in ourselves, and we look in the mirror when nobody else is around. And, when my guys are struggling in game, I think often as coaches, we want to go, hey, man, you didn't hit this ball because your hands were in the wrong position, or because you're late, or you're early, or whatever these other things are. And, I think I have my guys build their own core belief system, the things that get them centered, to get them back into their flow state. And we go back, we reverse it to, if you had that bad game, we're going to learn from the past and say, how did I feel pregame? How did you feel? I want to know how you felt. Did you feel like an absolute beast in pregame? Were your endorphins kicking in, and you had were you in that flow performance state, or not? And so the preparation, obviously, for the confidence factor comes in. But before I go straight to mechanics, when I feel like it's a confidence thing, if he's not getting off too, I would tell kids this also. Our goal for the game today, your goal, if the kid's struggling, don't care. I don't care how many hits you get. I don't care if you strike out 4 times today. Your goal is to get 2 to 3 healthy swings off in each at bat. I don't care if you swing and miss by a foot. But I want you to get, that's your goal. If you get 3 healthy swings off in one at bat, because if I'm just looking for one pitch, I foul it straight back, and then I'm done. It's going to be really, if I'm only getting 1 swing off, right, Kyle? So I would say get the aggression going and make that the goal, rather than I got to square a ball up.
I like that, and find just those small victories, right? So, hey, Coach Ferber, I appreciate you being on. We got so many great questions today, and continue to pour in. If you're just tuning in, this is a Coffee with Coach Lisle show for coaches. It is bright and early on Thursday, January 28th. If you're just tuning in, hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that retweet button, and do me a favor. Go follow Coach Ferber on Instagram at Coach Ferber. I expect a text message from Coach Ferber by the end of the day saying, I got 100 new followers, minimum. today.
Thank you.
That's what I want to see from you guys. So make sure you follow him on Instagram. I appreciate you coming on, Coach. You're one of the best out there. And
Thank you.
if you just tune in again, this will be live. This will be on Facebook. This will be up on Instagram, Twitter. You'll be able to watch this later on as well. And thank everybody for tuning in this morning. Have a great week, and hopefully I'll see you next week, and we'll do this again. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks, Coach.
See you guys. Thanks. Stay crispy out there, Coach.
All right, man.